Good afternoon, and it's time for our daily trade international briefing from our newsletter that we sent out. So it's a little bit late today. So we had a few teething problems by the looks of it with our provider sending some stuff out, but hopefully that's not stopping you from reading it. But just some recap. I just want to go through recap and just go through some key areas that to look at and the key things that we're seeing at the moment. Uh, we're saying today's landscape, so what we're seeing have been shaped by significant regularity and structural shifts across major markets. Again, compliance, we talk compliance all day, but compliance is coming more and more, into everything we do when it comes to shipping. UK-EU policy reset, Parliament debate signals potential regularity alignment and enhanced customs cooperation. Very interesting to see. We're going down that road, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. VAT, obviously structural modification in EU member states expecting clearance procedures. It's been a nightmare. UK companies trying to export into the EU. VAT triggered, wanting to be paid. It's caused a lot of issues. Again, no support there, as usual from UK. Just expect us to get on with it. Yet we allow PVA in the UK. It's beyond ridiculous. So, it's a double standard, and that's why I feel a lot of exporters get frustrated. Don't get frustrated. Unfortunately, you can't change what happens. It's systems, it's policies, but nobody understands the policy they're written half the time, or they have to do it in a structure that has to align. But the reality of is trying to fit a square box and a round tube doesn't happen, and we know that. So again, there's got to be a bit of flexibility there. But I understand why EU have been very dogmatic with this and caused a lot of issues. But again, it'd be nice to get some support. I do feel for a lot of the exporters, especially when you're shipping goods and then you force down the DDP route, which there was a solution. Now it's slightly changed, which I'm going to touch on in a moment. Again, I thought it's increasing audit activity. It's really strange. Obviously, when I wrote the our diploma course in international trade, I did one on international trade, and I've already done obviously the courses anyway on international trade. The history of it, this is nothing new, so don't always think that this is something for modern day trade. It's always been there. Unfortunately, origins are abused, and like I said, I'm going to do a short video on it, just to give you some ideas so you can see, the challenges would have been historical, to be honest. So again. Margin, we know there's a lot of margin friction creating cost challenges across supply chains. Look at your supply chain. It's very important. Key message from us, trade risk in 2026 is structural, not operational. Business must adapt to their compliance frameworks. Get your compliance right. Get the people in. You don't have to have people like me. Yeah, I make it very simple, but it is simple. It's not difficult. It's like me trying to sell your product. It's simple because you know your products. It's like what happened on 30 odd years. There's nothing that surprises me or nothing that we can't overcome or get around. It's just challenges there. You've just got to understand the framework behind it. Yes, there's regularity policies there. There's all sorts of different procedures there. But again, as long as you know how to do things, and this is why we created the Trade Intelligence Hub, which we're working frantically on to try and get prepared and get it out there, particularly the export builder, which will give companies a lot of relief, and it'll also give you a lot of the information that you need for when you're exporting. So you're not relying on the carriers, the freight forwarders, the brokers. You take a lot more control yourself. EU trade reset. So what's emerging UK parliamentary debate is focusing intensively on potential UK EU trade reset. Be interesting how that comes about. I'm surprised it's not really talked about. We see that as positives to make it easier, but I think all it does is creates more confusion personally, because nobody really knows and nobody ever gets told what's required, etc. Again, go down the route, get your origins, get your commodity codes, get all these things that you can control. You can't control a lot of the framework, what happens. You can't control borders. That's one thing that you've got to be careful of. Why this matters, your origin, like I keep saying, your documentation, your audit exposure. Remember, if you have an audit, how exposed are you from an audit? In my experience, I think 90% of companies are not audit prepared, and they cause themselves more issues than they need to, really. Or if you've been doing something, it happens, you can not get away with it. It's the wrong terminology to use, but you move goods, it moves, carry on moving it, and then what happens then? There's an audit, you leave yourself wide open from a HMRC audit. So again, alignment, reduces scrutiny. So again, it's having them alignments in place and making sure you're well prepared for everything. Some changes here coming, not coming to the 1st of December, what a lot of people might not be aware of. The VAT and customs structure regime. So what's regime? Regime was a system that was Deloitte were the first people to look at this with Europa. And they looked at a loop, and it's not a loophole, but they looked at a system where you was allowed to ship goods under DDP terms as long as you was registered in the EU, mainly in France and other countries. That goods going into France would be cleared at a central point. So it was like the old system where you just shipped into a single market. You shipped, you cleared it at one central point, and then the goods then got shipped to your customer with no customs or anything around there because all the paperwork and everything was done. Obviously, they needed to have a trail. But you wouldn't pay the VAT. The customer would then just align it within the system. When you used to do the old reporting under the VAT International VAT, that's all the importer would do. He'd just make a note of it. It stopped the exposure from the importer. It allowed you to trade, and you would take the cost of that. You wouldn't physically pay the cost of the VAT, but you'd pay the charges to somebody who's looking after that. And a lot of freight forwarders did it very well. Obviously, Europa, one of the first people. Davis Turner got involved with it. Sir Marco did a very good job of this, and that helped a lot of businesses support them in the European business rather than having hubs, centrally in Europe. They want to do it all from the UK. VAT is now materialised critical points during customs clearance procedures, border checks, etc. So why this matters? VAT structure and customs risk creates immediate operations. So what they've done with that, they've made it much more challenging. You've got to be VAT registered now in France. I know a lot of your vet pros who've been looking after you on this will be talking to you and will be supporting you. If you're looking at opportunity in Europe and you want to go down this road, again, speak to the vet holders. Again, I'm quite happy to give you some names. There's no point in us getting involved in it. You speak directly with the vet holders, but we know there's some good ones out there doing a very good job. Again, a forwarder will do everything it can for you, but remember, it moves the goods. It'll advise you, it will do the best it can, but again, ultimately, it's your choice. But again, incorrect VAT setups, they can cost you a lot of money if there's an audit. So again, if you have been doing regime, make sure you've got all your systems in place. Make sure the Fed Pol has been doing everything correct, which I'm pretty confident they have been doing, but they're all aligning with the rules what they should have been doing, because it is a system that can be used. But again, the key takeaway is tax mistakes now stops goods, so VAT is no longer post-claimant's consideration. There's taxes involved, and then their countries want money. They want to generate income. So again, just be conscious of that. It's very important. This is new. Again, whilst most attention focuses on border claimants, utmost compliance. So again, risk identification, evidence, audit, assessments, regulating, why don't you get your export clearance documents off your freight forwarder? It's crazy. You need copies of it. You need to understand what's been created for you. Don't just give them a commercial invoice and assume because it's been cleared, everything's okay. You've got to keep a track record of that. Check it, make sure there's nothing in there, because if there is and you get an audit, you are deemed under representation. Don't forget, when they ask you to sell the power of attorney, they're asking you to do a direct representation too. That means that they will act on your behalf, but you take the responsibility. The freight forwarder or the broker doesn't take any responsibility. He takes, obviously, he'll try and do everything he can under his compliance, but then if there's a big mistake happens, it'll ultimately come back to you because you should have checked it and queried it at the time. So again, check your documents. It's very important. Very, very. I can't stress the importance of this. Again, evidence, responsibility mapping. The cost effects, again, it can be very costly. We've seen fines range from 5,000 up to 2 million. It's a fine in thought that you could get fined £60,000 or £10,000, depending on your size, no matter what size you are. If you've not accounted for that cost, your MD or your CEO or whoever he is going to go absolute meltdown when you get a bill off HMRC for something that should have been avoidable. So again, it's just making sure that you're covering these areas. Again, prevention is cheaper. So again, get the right people in, get trained. Under HMRC, everybody who's in international trade should have some form of training since Brexit, because it's a huge change. Come to our courses. Again, we don't push it, but we'll start to advertise it on here. And we've got plenty of courses. There's videos you can buy. There's the customs diagnostics you can do. There's all sorts you can do to help yourself and support you. Just, I was looking at some challenges there and some data that I've pulled out. Canada, I thought we'll have a look at Canada today to see where we're seeing opportunities, stable economy. We know there's challenges at the moment. Bilateral relations between the UK and Canada. creates commercial goodwill. Both part of the CPTPP agreement, so alignment. So again, everybody's working on that. Commercial risks, there is a big trade imbalance. So again, pressure on exports, cost exposed distance, logistics, complexity. Again, use the right freight forwards who are doing direct services into Canada or who know the Canadian market who can support you. Again, compliance can anything maintain rigorous technical. We know that. Working in the US in customs and in Canada, we know the strict regulations are, and you've got to adhere to them regulations. So again, commercial invoices, make sure you're checking your commercial invoice matches the commercial invoice going the other side. Make sure you get your Incoterms and all these key areas correct. Again, Canada laws for third exporters and penalises weak compliance, so just always be aware of that. Again, don't be fighting of exporting to these markets, but again, be conscious of what you're doing and how it works. Just finally, just the box, obviously Mark Levinson, I've been doing reading it, and just the box is definite history of how containers fundamentally reshape global trade. It explains the transformation of ports, dramatic reduction in logistics, demonstrates how simple standardized steel boxes became the foundation of modern globalization. So again, we're going to be doing different books every week. We've just been doing Mark. We've got a new book next week, and I'm going to highlight it on here. Why it's relevant today? Because it's concentrated roots. It says in separable systems, again, put my teeth into there. Logistics, customer become integrated, not SQL. So again, it's very important. Structural efficiency. And again, if you understand containers, you understand modern trade. The physical infrastructure determines what commercially possible, and compliance sits within the intersection of physical and regularity systems. So again, I'm very lucky. Obviously, I was in logistics for a long, long time, 20 years. So I understand the logistics side of it as much as the customs. I'm a customs trainer to an exporter to others to running a business. So, I understand the challenges you go through. So that's a quick, short brief on today, on Thursday today. And again, just some action plans there, just to think about practical action plans, map responsibilities, test your market entry models. Again, we've got the trade intelligence to do this. Get your expert support, validate landing costs, identify risk early. Again, if you need that, contact us. Again, have a great day, and hopefully you enjoy reading or watching our new YouTube channel. Thanks very much, and have a nice day.